Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a poppy field. It's going to be simple poppies, and if you've ever wondered how to paint a blurry background, we're going to be focusing on that tonight in this one. So we'll be showing you step by step how to do it from start to finish. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's been in chat tonight for our live show, so if you've got questions while I'm painting, you can ask those, and I'll try to answer them. Let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be using a 9 by 12 inch Belgian linen board from Fredrix Canvas. They are our canvas sponsor. I love their hard boards here. The 9 by 12 inch size is just kind of the best size for my camera. So if you want to do it larger, I think this would be really nice on a really large canvas. So just use whatever size that you've got that you want to use. It'll be really easy to change it up. The brushes we're going to be using tonight are Princeton brushes. They're our brush sponsor. So thank you to Fredrix and Princeton for providing us with some products today. It's a win-win. We don't get paid for them to use their stuff. They just kind of send us some freebies every now and then, and I was already using it, so it was kind of a nice thing for us to be able to one less thing to buy. We go through a lot of paints and stuff, and I go through a lot of brushes in a year, so with as many paintings as we do. All right, let's go through the brushes real quick. This is the Princeton Summit Series 6100, and this is the 8, 6, and 4 Filbert and the long handles, and really you could use short handle brushes. I do like the long handles though for some of this stuff that we do, but really you don't need to have the super long handles if you I get questions about that a lot. Really doesn't matter either way. I've also got a 3/8 inch and a 1/4 inch angle brush, 2/0 script liner, and a 3/8 inch Willow's blender in the VelvetTouch line. And then in the Select, I've got a 3/8 inch Deerfoot Stippler. So just going to want to have something, either Stippler or mop brush or something like that, that'll be able to create some of these textured little soft fuzzies in the background. One of these brushes, or even a sponge or something like that will help too. Just some kind of something that you can kind of use to blend out the edges of our flowers in the background. Okay, and then I've also got a large 3-inch Aspen brush. This is a paddle brush. I'm going to be using that to kind of just blend over everything when I get this background set. Let's go over our colors. I've got carbon black, burnt sienna, yellow, cadmium yellow medium, phthalo green yellow shade, cobalt teal, phthalo blue green shade, ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, quinacridone magenta, cadmium red medium and light, and then this is a big blob of white, titanium white, and this is my glazing medium. This is golden glazing liquid and the satin gloss. I'm sorry, gloss or satin, either one. I don't tend to like matte mediums for painting because they do have a mattifier in them, which kind of adds like a dullness to the colors. It kind of dulls down the colors just a little bit, but it's noticeable if you use a lot of it. All right, I'm going to start with the largest brush. This is the 8th Filbert here, and I'm just going to dab on some colors. I did kind of place a few things, so if you want to lightly sketch beforehand, just sort of to get an idea of where you want some of these smaller poppies. So I'm going to have one up here that's kind of blurry, one over here that's sort of almost heart-shaped at the top, and then has a couple little thingies coming down here, another little one here, one up here. And I decided to add a third in focus. So there's 2 in our image. I'm going to add a third one that's down here that's in focus as well, just to round it out. I just kind of thought it needed it. More flowers, always a good thing, right? All right, so these ones in the background are a little bit smaller than the ones that are going to be up here in the foreground. So keep that in mind. They're farther away. They're going to be a little bit smaller. So keep them smaller back here. And you don't really have to worry too much about the actual drawing at this point. We're just kind of trying to get a basic placement. separation between them. Okay, so there's our kind of basic poppy shapes there. And then down in the foreground, we're going to have our larger ones here and down in here, there. And then I'm going to add one right here that's kind of facing out and right there like that. Okay, so there's our poppies. Not a whole lot to do. We're going to definitely need at least 2 to 3 coats on the background here to build up our layers. So first thing I'm just going to, and I could have started with I thought about starting with this color. This is the Cobalt Teal. Basically, it's just Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green, and white, kind of equal parts. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to it and get a pretty good amount on my brush. And just go ahead and kind of paint it in and around my flowers. And the key to the blending or the soft kind of blurry look is to kind of blend out all of these edges between the colors. So as I get to these red areas here, I'm going to kind of blend those out so that, and with these ones in the front here, these red ones, I'm not going to worry about it too much. In fact, I'm probably just going to paint over them, but I kind of want to leave a little bit of that red because it's going to be hard to cover the, yeah, actually I'm just going to do that on these ones. The only ones I'm really worried about are the ones back in the background because those we have to blend into the green or blue background. The ones in the foreground are going to be setting on top, so we'll just paint those in later. All right, so getting a little bit of water. If you're new to painting with acrylics, they need a lot of water. So have a handy or a spray bottle handy here and spray your paints pretty frequently as you work. I'm using a glass palette. You can use a waxed paper palette. They have ones made for painting with acrylics. And then you can also use like a foam plate or some sort of a waxed plate that is not porous. So you don't want a paper plate that will soak all the moisture out of your paint. I see people painting with paper plates. Sometimes I'm like, don't do it. It's just gonna cause issues with your paint. It will just dry them out a whole lot faster. So just want some sort of surface that is not going to let the water evaporate out as quickly or as easily. Okay, so you can see how as I'm painting them in, I'm not really worried about the shape yet. I'm just mainly worried about kind of getting those edges sort of blended out. So you can see as I'm kind of approaching those areas there, I'm just kind of lightly brushing my brush over and lifting it as I dab it on there, as I add the paint, so that I have these soft edges around all of these shapes that we're going to be painting in with red. That will just make it a whole lot easier for us to blend them later once we get them in. And I've kind of covered up these little dot ones, but we'll just have to put those back in later. Okay. So down up in here, I'm seeing a little bit more blue. So I added a little bit of phthalo blue there to this color. Sorry, I didn't mention that while I was talking. Phthalo blue here. Don't leave me mean comments. I'll just delete them. So save yourself and me the time. We're laughing. I do that. Just go through. If I get a mean comment, I don't even read it. I just delete it.
Well, that just opened up
that kind of negative energy.
I'll say that just opened up some time on my calendar.
You're not the one doing it. It's me. Oh, on your calendar. So you were planning on leaving him. I see. I see who's been leaving him now. Okay. I see. All right. Makes sense. Mark's like, I don't get dinner until like 9 o'clock on Tuesday nights.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to start adding a little bit of like blue or purpley colors down in here. These are kind of a deeper blue. And this is still wet. I'm working really quickly. I'm not worried about how it looks really too much at this point. I'm just getting the paint on the canvas. That's the main thing. You just want to get that paint on there as quickly as you can. We're going to be putting lots of other layers on, so don't get caught up. I think sometimes when you first start painting with acrylics, I know I did this, I would get focused in one area and I was like, I've got to perfect this one little area, and I would just keep adding paint to that area and just like keep trying to get it to look right. And if you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to start getting sticky. As it dries, the paint underneath that you first put down is going to start drying, and then the paint that's on top in the upper layers is going to bind to that paint that's trying to dry. It'll be sticky and it'll start getting gummy, and you'll just end up with this big gummy mess on your canvas, and the paint will start to kind of get a stucco-like texture, and it's just not good. So do yourself a favor and just do thin layers, keep moving, come back to it once it's dry. So you can always add more layers. And I do like to paint fairly thin, but you could add texture to this. I think it would be really nice to have some texture in here. So you could even go through if you wanted to and use a texture medium in the background and kind of add some different textures to the canvas so that when you did this layer, it would have kind of some things happening underneath. I think that would look cool. I don't generally work with a lot of mediums like that, the texture mediums, just because I have to paint it ahead of time. Since we paint live, they take like usually overnight to dry, so you just really can't do that with the way we paint live. So if you're going to paint with like a texture medium of some sort of modeling paste or something like that, just make sure that you let it dry overnight before you work it again or add colors to it. Okay, so that is just about all I can do with that. I'm going to go ahead and paint in the red ones, and I'm going to switch to a smaller brush so I have a little bit more control.
Which brush is it?
This is the number 4. And I'm going to get the Quinacridone Magenta and the Cadmium Red Medium. That's going to make a really pretty cherry red. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the white to it. And really going to try to be careful. Just put a little bit of color in the middle and very lightly blend out those edges. It's not going to blend yet. We don't really want it to, we're not going to worry about it being blended yet. Just trying to get that shape. So it's not going to look great where it's overlapping, but that's okay. We'll fix it with our next layers. Right now we're just kind of laying down some color, getting some color down on the canvas here. And we'll be glad that we did this in this way, because you can see anywhere where that blue is, it's already not wanting to, it's gonna tint that paint quite a bit. So these ones that we paint in down here, we're definitely going to have to add a lot of white to them and do them in a couple of layers to get them to look right. So you want to have like a hairdryer or something handy so that you can dry this in between. Like I said, we're probably going to need at least 2-3 layers. Probably 3, I'm thinking. So Marquette may have to dry it a couple of times for us.
I was going to say, if you're really cool, you have somebody that will operate the hairdryer for you.
Yeah. Someone's got to do it, you know.
Your lovely assistant.
That's right.
I'm kind of the Vanna of art YouTube.
That's right. So welcome. Hey guys, if you're new to our channel, hope you subscribe. Come back and join us. We do this live twice a week, Saturdays and Tuesdays. And welcome to our regular group of folks that enjoy hanging out with us a couple times a week. It's pretty awesome to get to know all of you from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm talking slow.
Yeah, whispering.
I know, sorry.
That's okay. I won't fire you.
Getting into it right now. What did you say?
I won't fire you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, so there we go. So you can see where we went over the blue, how it's kind of got that like rim of almost like purple looking. So we'll definitely need to kind of work on getting that blended out, but I think so far so good. And this is too wet to do anything else to it, so I'm gonna have to let Mark take it and dry it for me. It shouldn't take too long because it's been we put it on pretty thin in thin layers. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this out. It will help too as you're working to maybe have like a brush that's got your reds and another brush that's got your cooler colors, your blues and greens, and that way, because you don't want green and red to mix together, they'll make a kind of a brown. So as long as you keep your brush clean in between, you could use the same brushes, but since I'm working pretty quickly and blending the way we're going to be doing, I'll have these 3 brushes that I can work with, but having these 2 kind of separated out and only using, I'll probably grab this one too and use these 2 for the blues and greens and only use this one for the red parts, and that will keep it from getting muddy when we are doing the red sections. So just a little tip there. I'm going to show you what we did on Sunday. So if you were part of our bonus video group on Patreon, our $5 and up folks, we painted this on Sunday for them. Once a month we do a special bonus video that we don't do on YouTube. It's just for our to say thank you to our patrons who support us at the $5 or more level. So this was our painting that we did on Sunday. It was 4 hours or so, and it was a lot of fun actually. It went pretty quickly for a bonus video. Sometimes they go really long. So 4 hours is actually pretty good for my recent track record. It's usually a lot longer than that.
Did you tell him not to be deceived by the pictures?
What pictures?
On the opening of the bonus video?
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah. We had some technical issues. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start working in and around these and start blending this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a little bit smaller brush. It'll give me a little bit more control in here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and grab the Phthalo Blue and Phthalo Green and mix those 2 together. They're going to make a color called Phthalo Turquoise. So if you have that, you can grab that. I'm going to add more of the blue than the green though, so it'll be a little bit more on the blue side, more of a turquoise than a teal. And then I might add just the tiniest bit of burnt sienna, and burnt sienna will kind of darken it a little bit and make it a little bit more green, a little bit more neutral, kind of a more natural looking color. So I've got both of those colors there, and then I can add white to these to help make them more opaque. These colors are transparent colors. The phthalos are both transparent. Burnt sienna is not, but we're not using enough of it to really make a difference. But if we add a little bit of white, titanium white, if you're having trouble with your colors, covering, titanium white is the way to go because it will make your whatever color you're using more opaque. It's just it's one of the better colors for that. It's not a color really, but it's one of the better paints to grab for that. All right, so I'm going to add that in and around, and then I'm going to get maybe a little bit of the yellow. Do that over here, and I'm noticing some little yellow areas, and I'll probably have to put those in later, more brighter yellow on top. This is where I was saying like you're going to need at least 3 layers, because you can see already, I mean, this is helping, but it's still not covering very well. It's still got quite a bit of, you know, kind of some streaks and things happening, which is fine. And we're going to get a little bit of that, but I'm going to get a little bit darker. So up in here, it's darker. And I'm not too worried about my red. I'm going to go back over this with more red. So if you go over it a little bit, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Mainly, again, we're just wanting to work quickly and just get some color down. And you can leave a little bit of brush strokes showing if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit more white here in this area. There we go. So as we come to the middle, it's starting to get kind of light. There's some areas light. It's not going to look real great yet, so don't worry about that. It's kind of a known thing, that phenomenon that acrylic paintings will kind of go through. I call it an ugly stage, where when you're first putting on these layers, they just don't look real great. And that is totally normal. So just kind of know that going in, so that you don't psych yourself out and think you're doing something wrong and then start to try to fix it by, you know, getting caught up with, you know, fixing one little area, and that's where you kind of go wrong. You go off the rails a little bit. All right, going to get some ultramarine blue and start adding some kind of more purpley blue here. And I have not cleaned out my brush, so it's just kind of mixing with whatever's in my brush already. Oh, that's a pretty color, isn't it? So let's start using some of that over here. Again, as I'm adding a new color, what I'm doing is I'm adding it in an area where I haven't painted yet. So I'm, of course, in this layer, I mean, not the last layer. The whole thing's painted, obviously. But so if I want to blend this and this together, what I'll do is grab a new color. So whatever color I want that to be, maybe add some of the Cobalt Teal to it. And then I'm going to go up next to in the open space right here. So I'm going to fill that in, and then I'm going to blend over those two colors just very lightly once I get most of the color out of my brush. And that will allow you to have a little bit of time to blend. If you try to blend, so say I wanted to blend right here on top of this, if I go straight in with heavy paint, it's going to end up blending way out to here. So I want to blend in slowly and start a little bit farther away, get most of my heavy color off in some of my in the area that's kind of in between, and then work it in towards the middle. So I'm adding a little bit of green here, a little bit phthalo green, and just trying to kind of add different things here. A little bit of white. Okay, so again, and you can see I'm kind of working from the corner in, so I'm working in sections so that I'm not letting it dry in between. I don't want my sections to dry before I get to the next section. So, or I don't want my edges to dry out too much. You know, they're going to dry a little bit, but I want them to be somewhat workable. So adding just some phthalo blue. So really, it doesn't matter what colors you use in this background necessarily. It's just going to be these phthalo blue, phthalo green, ultramarine blue, yellow. All of these colors mixed together are going to make these blue greens, and in any combination that you do it. So it's not, there's no real right or wrong way to do this background here. It's probably not going to look exactly like mine, because I'm just kind of going through and adding a dab of this and a dab of that. So don't worry too much. Don't get too caught up in the colors at this point. Just kind of do what you see what looks good to you, and then we'll be blending in our red here in a minute, but adding a little bit more brighter blue here and there. Maybe bringing it around here, and you can see I am going over my red a little bit, and that's okay. So go ahead and bring it right up to and around my reds, over them just a little bit. This is that ultramarine blue with phthalo blue mixture with some white in it. Okay, let's get some of that darker teal right in here. I see some of that teal color pretty much out of it. So I'm going to get a little bit more phthalo blue and a little bit more of the burnt sienna right here. Just do a dark patch. Now with this kind of acrylic painting, with it being all kind of blurry and everything, it's really important to kind of get some areas of contrast. So I'm going to just kind of throw this color down here because I see it more over here. Again, I don't see a whole lot more of it up in the upper area, so I'm just going to kind of use what's on my brush here and just brush it out down low here while I've got it on there. Maybe get a little bit of it, put it up here. There we go. Okay, and if you notice that I'm also doing just like what I said with the red, where I'm not putting like a hard line and leaving a really defined shape. All of these sections, when I paint them in, I'm softening up any of the outlines of them, and then that way I can come back in and add to them later, and even if they have dried, they're not going to be hard to blend into. So I'm going to get some white and some of whatever this color is in here. I think this was that phthalo turquoise that we mixed together. It's kind of turning gray for some reason. I think we got, I don't know why. Let's get some cobalt teal. And that, you can see now with the second layer, we shouldn't be able to see those heavy brush strokes that are underneath here anymore. And I do want to leave some of these really pretty light turquoise areas, so I'm going to go ahead and get some white and some of that cobalt teal and add some of that. Some of that blue and bring it down. That's the ultramarine blue. Just create some different patterns. Think about what kind of shapes your leaves and flowers would be creating back here. So that's really what we're seeing, is all these leaves and flowers and things farther away. They're all kind of blurry and out of focus. So we can kind of create some of those types of shapes by kind of creating these vertical little lines here. Let's go ahead and use the phthalo turquoise or cobalt teal and phthalo green, sorry. I'm going to add some white. Okay. So we're already kind of getting that blurry look just by kind of doing it this way. I'm going to go ahead and add some more of this darker blue up in here. And I'm kind of purposefully leaving a few areas here for me to be able to go back in and add some of the lighter colors in. And now I'm just kind of scrubbing out what's left on my brush here. Really pressing down hard to get that paint off my brush. Get most of it out there. And then I'm gonna clean it out a little bit, get a little bit more water, get some of the Cobalt Teal. There's a lot of it in this area here, so I'm just going to paint that in. A little bit more water or white and a little touch of the green. So I need to make this area in here a little bit brighter, a little bit lighter. So I'm going to get a little bit of the white and a little bit of the light green. Get this. There we go. And having that dark green underneath, or the dark blue underneath, really set this off, and we can leave some of this blue kind of in between some of this. Getting some phthalo blue here, working that in. Okay. Now this is starting to kind of dry back in here, so we'll just keep on working our way down here. Get more of the green. Phthalo green. Phthalo Cobalt Teal. Some phthalo blue with the Cobalt Teal. Do some of that over here. Again, just kind of using all the different blues and greens in different ways, different layers, some with white, some without. Different intensities. We're trying to create some movement and create some depth by creating different layers of values. So getting some areas that are darker, some areas that are lighter. That is going to make it look like there's stuff going on back here. Adding some white. Little bits. I'm trying to kind of blend these out so they're not too obvious brush strokes. Just kind of blend them a little bit by just kind of tapping back over them while they're wet. The Filbert already makes kind of a nice rounded shape, so I don't have to do too much, but I'm going to go ahead and use it upright this way. Do some kind of stem-like vertical leaves. Again, keeping them very blurry though. We're not really making anything defined yet. This is the phthalo blue and phthalo green together. Pretty much full strength. Down here, this area is very dark. Let's go ahead and even pull in some purple now. Now we have to be careful with the purple because we had yellow in here. So if we put the purple with the green, this green has got so much yellow in it, it's gonna muddy the color. So if I want to keep it kind of natural or, bright, vibrant purple, I'm gonna have to just be careful to clean my brush out or, not use it in the mixtures with the green. So I had most of the paint out of my brush there. Okay, so just using this purple in different areas, and you can see I'm kind of really pressing down to get that paint off my brush. I'm going to get some of the Ultramarine Blue, which is the next color over, right? I set them on my palette that way on purpose. So I always set my palette paints with my blue that's closest to the purple on that side and the blue that is closest to the green on this side, so that when I'm making my mixtures, it's easier to tell. You know, I can work quickly and just grab the next color over, and I know it's going to be the one that I want. Okay, so getting a little bit of ultramarine blue here, and adding that in. This is just ultramarine blue and white. I still had a little bit of that purple on there. You can see how purple the blue is, the ultramarine blue is, when you add white to it. So I'm going to add a little bit of white. And then down here there's more green, so I want to make sure that I don't have that purple in my brush. So I'm wiping that out, getting the green and the phthalo, or the cobalt teal, maybe a little bit of that phthalo blue. I'm going to do the green down here. I don't have to clean it out completely. It's fine if it's a little bit in there, but you just don't want it. It's not going to hurt anything if there's a little bit of the purple in there, but you just don't want it to be so much that it'll blend with it too much. Okay, so blending over these areas with this color. If you do start to get a muddy color, just stop, let your paints dry, and then continue. So that can happen. If your paint's too reactive, if you've got too much of a wet layer down and a color that is not mixing well with the color that you're trying to put on top of it, just let it dry underneath, the underneath color dry completely, and then you can keep going. Okay, so adding some of the lighter turquoisey teal, cobalt teal, white. And I want more of the blue in these, I think. So I'm going to get a little bit of that phthalo blue and mix that with the white. Okay, so I'm just looking at all the colors that I'm seeing underneath. So that's all I'm doing right now. It's just what colors am I seeing behind and between the poppies. Puppies on the brain. Speaking of puppies, Stippler went to puppy class last night, so he was not very well behaved. I should say he was well behaved for the teacher, not for me. As soon as she gave him a treat, first thing, that's all he cared about. He was like looking for the teacher to give him more treats. He didn't listen to anything I was trying to tell him to do, because he was focused on the teacher, which he was probably the teacher's pet, but you know, I did not mean that as a pun. Just realized that. Yeah, we got a 5-month-old Cavapoo puppy. He's adorable, but he's a mess. 5 months going on 15, you know.
He's getting big.
Yes. Oh my gosh, he's getting huge. He thinks he's still a puppy, and he just comes and runs and jumps on you. He goes and runs straight at Mark and just leaps in the air and expects him to catch him. Like tackle you. Okay, so going through here, adding some more pops of this bright blue. I really like this color. It's looking good. Getting good contrast in here. So just adding little bits of it here. My paint's starting to get a little bit sticky, so I'm gonna probably lay off adding too many more layers in here until it's dry. I think we're doing pretty good so far. So far, so good. Let's get a little bit more of the cobalt teal. I'm sorry, phthalo green and phthalo blue here. Why is it cobalt teal? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to end up using this because my paints aren't going on wet enough. Like if they were a little bit wetter, I could use the larger brush to kind of blend through them, but they're not going on very wet, or I just don't have a large enough area. I'm kind of going slowly, so we're not going to need that large brush, I don't think, for this time. Okay, so using the cobalt, I'm sorry, I keep saying cobalt, phthalo blue, phthalo green, the turquoise color here. So right here, that is trying to lift on me, so I'm going to just kind of tap very lightly to get a good coat on there and then just leave it. So while this is setting up, I can switch to my smaller brush here and we'll do another layer of the red. Cadmium Red Medium and Quinacridone Magenta here. If you have like a crimson, you could use that instead. The cadmium red tends to be kind of an orange leaning red, and the magenta just really makes it much more vibrant, brighter. So I'm going to blend over this. Let's do a second coat on all these. And then what I can do is grab maybe a little bit of the Ultramarine Blue, a little bit of white, a little ultramarine, a little bit of phthalo. It's going to mix with this red and create an in-between color, and that's what we want to use to blend out our edges. So I'm going to take most of that off there. I don't need a lot of this color. And I'm just going to lightly kind of go over this area between those two colors and blend those out a little bit. And I'm going to bring it out a little bit farther than it needs to go. But you remember I painted over those a little bit too, so bringing it back out a little bit. I need more white. It's turning too dark. So I'm just going to get some more white. And don't worry if it doesn't look good on the first try. It's probably not going to. Okay, so go all the way around it, wipe your brush out, get a little bit more of that red, and then blend back out towards that white with the red. Okay. And then we can grab our blue brush, remember? And get a color as close to that background that you can find. It doesn't have to be exact. We're going to blend out from the blue in. See how that works? Okay, switching to my red brush. This is still all wet, so we're working quickly back and forth. I'm kind of going slower than I would actually do. So make sure that you've got your red brush kind of handy, and you could probably do this in sections. So you could probably do your background in this section, then do the red, and then move on, you know. So like when we were doing this last layer that we just did, picking up the red and doing that at the same time as we're doing some of these other. I'm going to add some more of that light color there. Just blend it out. That's really the main thing to make this blurry look, is just blending these two colors together. So it can be kind of tricky, but don't use a lot of paint. I think that's the main thing. I think when people blend, they think they're going to have to, you know, just have a ton of paint on there to get it to blend, and that's really going to make it harder for you to blend. So if I have a lot of paint on here, so I'm just laying down kind of the heavier paint where I want it to go. In fact, I'm going to just use it to offload on here while I've got it on here. See how much paint how much paint I just wiped off my brush, and then I'm going to wipe off the rest of it. It's almost dry. I'm just going to blend all the way around that edge and blend it into, and this paint over here is still just a little bit wet. It's starting to get kind of sticky, so you need to be careful not to, remember, we don't want to mess with it when it's drying. So this area right in here is starting to dry, so I'm going to go ahead and stop on that one and just move on to the next one over here and work on it for a little bit. So we'll get some white. I just laid down the red, so I don't have to do that part again. Lay down that. Wipe my brush out. I'm going to pick up a little bit more red though, because I need to have a little bit on here to blend out this white edge. Okay, and then grabbing this blue, and just make sure you're keeping these paint brushes wet enough that they're not going to dry out when you're going in between. So getting a color close to what's in the background here. And I'm going to blend out this area because it looks a little bit blend back in over that. Let's go ahead and blend around this one with that. Blend out that white border. And this is where we could also use our Stippler too, if we wanted to use it in this area. You could use it to help blend out some of that area. Add some water. My paint is getting kind of sticky, so it'll help if it's got a little bit of a fluidity, the paint. You don't want it too wet. It doesn't blend well if it's super, super wet. It just kind of moves around. It doesn't blend into the other colors well. There we go. So blended that out, and I just add just a little bit more of this. While that's wet, I'm just going to blend into that wet green. I didn't mix the two colors together. You don't have to if you do this. So I'm just blending into the wet green to pull that color out a little bit.
So how do you choose which is going to be your red brush and which is going to be your blue brush?
I'm choosing the smaller of the two for the red because they're smaller areas. It doesn't really matter.
Wow, I was trying to be funny and you answered it straight.
This is serious considerations here. I'm messing around. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit of purple, add it with the Quinacridone Magenta, go right up underneath right here and add a little bit of the purpley color underneath this guy. And it went up pretty high there. So I'm just going to get a little bit more of the red, and I'm going to put it, remember, I want to blend this out, but I have to put it above it and pull down. I can't blend straight onto that line. Okay, there we go. Good. So we got some good kind of blendy things happening here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do some little, well, that kind of turned out to be a little bit more obvious than I wanted.
Could you
Add a little bit, do some like little lines through there. What?
Could you simplify this to be done with kids?
Yeah, if I was doing it with kids, I would probably just do it, do the main, I would just do the background all blue and then do the main poppies over them. I wouldn't try to blend it in like this. This would be too difficult for kids, probably, I would think. Okay. I wouldn't do it this way. I've done poppy fields like this with kids before, and it was fun. Yeah, they did fine with it.
What about if you're doing it with your husband? Can you make it simpler?
Yes, always. Is somebody asking for it to be simplified?
Well, it was a real question regarding the kids, but obviously the follow-up wasn't.
I have another poppy field painting that I did a couple years, actually probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was an older one. The camera work's probably not that great, and it's sound. I don't, as far as the quality goes, I wouldn't say it was our best effort. We didn't have the equipment that we have now, or the extra cameras and stuff. But
Thank you, Patreon supporters.
yes, thank you. That's what's paying for the cat videos are paying for the improved quality for everybody. All right, so getting some of this light turquoise here. I don't really know what color this is, just kind of blending back over this, adding some colors there. Look how pretty that is. Okay, I think it's good. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of the lighter color around there. And just some little fuzzies in there. I'm just kind of trying to slowly work my way down so that I have it looking good. Well, we're already an hour in. I need to speed it up here, don't I? Mark wants to eat his spaghetti and raviolis anytime soon. Okay, let's go. Is that why you were asking? That's why. Well, that's really why you were asking. You were like, "Can you simplify this?" So.
Yeah, because I like to not finish dinner then go right to bed.
Do you need to go start on it? You can go start on it,
No, it'll be relatively quick.
Okay. You might need to start boiling the water.
Well, I don't know about it anymore.
By the time.
Our new stove does pretty good.
It actually does. We bought a new stove for a $35 part. That's how we do.
Well, it's how much we didn't like the old stove.
It's true. It's true. Our old stove broke, and we're like, should we call a repairman? And it's like, no, it's probably going to be like $100 just asking, to come. So then we're like, well, if we're going to sell it, we probably ought to have the part for somebody, or like have it at least sort of in working order. And we looked it up. It was like $35, but we'd already ordered the new stove because we wanted to eat. So, but yeah, so that happened. It's like, oh, it's not as expensive as we thought. Oh, well, now we got a stove that actually works. So there we go. We got a little bit of purple there, just adding that to it. I'm actually pretty happy with that. It's not not as light maybe as I'd want it, so I might go a little bit more white here and try to get a little bit. I'm using the Cadmium Red Light to give it a little bit more of a salmon sort of sun-kissed color. There we go. And again, Put the color down, wipe your brush out. Get your red that you want to blend it into, put it down here. Start it out down here, get most of the color off your brush, and then once most of it's out, then kind of blend it up into that. And you can see the areas where the paint has started to dry right there because it's not sticking. And that just tells me that that right there, where it's trying to see through and poke through, that it's getting sticky and it's sticking to my brush instead of a canvas. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to leave this alone because it's just. Okay, let's use the turquoise. We can get it as close as we can, but it doesn't have to match. So don't worry if you're like, I don't remember what color that was. Don't just get something that's, you know, close. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to be blending it out in anyways, so blend it out into what we've got going on in our background. Just going to make some new blobs there. What we don't want to have is the same color all the way around to make a halo. So we definitely want to pull this color up and out into the colors around it so that it is integrated. You don't want like this halo of a new color all the way around your flower. There we go. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that darker purple. See if I can still get it in there. A little bit of black. There we go. Wipe that out. Tap, tap, tap. Just going to pull that color up a little bit. Blend out those edges. This paint is way too, it's drying too much. So I'm just trying to lift instead of blend. If it's not blending, it just means because it's drying. So you can see what happened there. I just ended up with kind of a mess right there. We'll just let it dry. Don't do what I just did. I thought I could get it to blend, but it just was too dry, too sticky. But that's okay. We'll just put another layer on. It won't be a big deal at all. Oops, got the red in my wrong brush. Got some of that light red there. Might as well go with it. I've already done it. A little bit here. Red. Okay. That one looks really bad. Just do like that. Oops, oops, oops. All right. Get some cadmium red and cadmium light. Believe it or not, the actual like in focus poppies are going to go a lot faster than these ones. This is actually harder to do than the ones that are kind of in focus because these take a little bit more finesse around the edges. And the ones that are down here that we're going to be putting on top are actually going to be quick, relatively. So this one's a little bit more focused, so I'm gonna do a little bit. And actually, I just pulled that color down over that blue and it created that darker border underneath it. So I don't need to really do a whole lot more for that one. Pretty happy with that. And get a little bit more of this color here. You can see how some of them are a little bit more of an orangey red and some of them are a little bit more of a purpley pink color. So just kind of change up the tones a little bit on some of these so that some of them, so there's this one's going to have a little bit of the purple color underneath. Here I'm just kind of feathering out that bottom edge of it. Let's do a little bit of that one too, pull that down a little bit. Wipe that out, get a little bit of my white and mix it into this red and pink magenta color that we've got going on right here. Go a little bit lighter than you think you need it because it's going over this darker color. It's going to need a little bit lighter. And it dries darker, so it'll dry. If you do a little bit lighter than you think, it'll probably dry just about the right color. And I'm really kind of just dry brushing these outer edges. I'm not having to put the blue on there because it's kind of blending in over the top of that blue background. I'm making sure that my edges are sort of soft and fluffy, fuzzy. Getting some more of the darker magenta, doing a little bit heavier coverage right there where I want it a little bit darker. Okay. That's dry enough now. We can put another coat on here. So I'm going to get a little bit of the magenta and cadmium red. I'm just going to go over this whole area right here where it didn't really blend very well for me. And this ended up being a little big, really. But that's all right. Okay. And there's some light color coming down right here. There. Just using up what's left in my brush in the areas that I see that kind of lighter color. Let's get a little bit on this one. All right, and then I'm going to get that black. Try that again. Wipe most of it out of my brush and then just kind of tap that outer edge. That's much better. That fresh red is accepting the paint a lot better than it was when it was all muddy and or starting to dry. Okay, so we're almost done. We're with the background area. We got just this one here and we're ready to start with our main one. Getting some of the red there. Go ahead and put in a pretty good amount of that middle red color. And this one actually has yellow around the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and get some yellow in here with my white. And I'm going to use the glaze with the yellow That'll make it more transparent. I'm going to put it over the top of some of this in some areas that'll kind of add a little bit of that yellow. There's some here. And then I'm just kind of blending it into that red a little bit on this one. That red's still wet, so it's kind of blending. This one doesn't have any fresh red, so I'm just cover the whole thing with that yellow and wipe it out of my brush. It's a fresh brush here. Clean it, don't want a lot of that yellow in there. Wipe most of that paint out. There we go. See how going over that blue right there just automatically made it darker right there. It's really a nice little trick. It's working really well for me. And by kind of dry brushing down, kind of breaking up that line a little bit, fuzzing it out, it's creating a softer blended edge, and I'm not having to blend in my blue. And I could if I needed to, so I might get a little bit of the blue and cobalt teal here and blend back in, but go. I still have that red in there, so it's need to be careful not to mix the red and the green. I didn't have a lot of red in my brush, so it's not blending with it too bad. And it's okay if it blends a little bit, because we did that around here. We ended up, you know, mixing the background color and the red together. Okay, I really like that. Looks pretty. A bit of pink in this one I'm going to get. A little bit of white. Actually, a lot of white. Blend out some pink in there. Again, pulling it outside the edges, the boundaries of the flower a little bit to just soften that border. Anywhere where it looks really obvious, that's where you need to go back in and kind of blend it out. But if you look at it from a distance and it looks like it's kind of fuzzy, then I wouldn't worry about what the brush stroke looks like close up. It's what it looks like at the distance that we're working towards. So sometimes looking at it like right here, you're going to think, I don't know. But if you look at it from a distance and it looks good, then that's the whole thing. That'll be fine. A lot of times if you go to a museum or something and you look at a painting, even ones that look realistic, and then you get roll up close and you look at the brush strokes, it doesn't look real great, you know, or, you know, it might not look like fully detailed all the way through, and that's pretty normal for a good painting. You really don't need to go in and do every little detail for your eye to kind of figure out what's going on and make sense of the scene. So I think that's pretty close to what I want it to look like. I'm going to go ahead and clean out those brushes really good so I don't have a lot of paint setting in there. I'm going to turn this over so I have a clean paper towel to work with. And then what I want to do is create some stems and things back here. So I'm going to think I'm going to go ahead and I'll work with the 3/8 inch angle brush. And I don't think I'm going to have you dry this again, honey. I think that we did okay on this, so I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to get some green. And there is a stem coming right through here. I'm going to go ahead and get some of the glaze. Maybe just kind of fuzz out that edge by kind of going back over it and blurring it out a little bit. I don't want it to be super defined. These are all kind of fuzzy and out of focus, so get a little bit of that glaze and just kind of put it on a little bit lighter. Go back through and kind of fuzz out those edges a little bit. And then if it doesn't show up, if you can't see where it is, then I'm going to add some white so that I'm getting okay, then gonna get a little bit of the cobalt, or the cobalt teal and phthalo blue. I'm out of cobalt teal, I'm gonna have to get some more. And gonna make a bud here. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of use the light color to start with. There. Let's do another one up here. And then pick up some of that green. Just brush it through with some color here. Now, I'm not gonna worry too much about where this is going. Really want it kind of random little leaves and sticks and things kind of filling up this whole bottom area here, so quicker seems to be better, I find. Keep it thin enough though, and more like, you know, obscured, thin paint, soft color, so that you're not putting too hard of a line. That's the main thing. You just want this to be fuzzy, so keep it blurry. And by blurry, we just mean like kind of messy edges, really. That's the main thing. So if you have a hard time painting like clear, crisp lines, this is the painting for you, because you don't want that in here. We want everything kind of blurry and out of focus. So I'm just kind of using this to create some lines, create some indications of some grasses just by doing these vertical lines in different directions. Okay. I'm going to go up over some of these red flowers. I'm going to get a little bit of that Ultramarine Blue here and kind of go back through this area. Get a little bit of glaze even. Glaze will keep it from going on too heavy. So glaze is definitely your friend with this, especially with your upper layers here when we're wanting to just kind of be a little bit more subtle about it. If you lose a little bit of glaze, it will just kind of thin that paint out a little bit so you can't get a real hard line. And it'll have to go on kind of thin and blurry. Kind of helps. Okay, just getting the ultramarine blue. And I want some pretty dark, so I'm going to get a little bit of the heavier color. I'm just going to work that into where we're doing it down here. Made a little bud here, just kind of this darker shape here. I'm going to get some darker phthalo blue and phthalo green, add a darker shadow to it. And if at any point you're like, you know, got too thick or too much, then just kind of go back over it and kind of blend it back out. So it doesn't have to be set in stone. If you did it and it's just like you're not really loving it, just kind of do it again. Paint over it. It's just paint. That's the beauty of acrylics. You can paint over it just about as many times as you need to. So let's kind of make some indications. Doesn't have to be, we don't want like set stems or anything, but let's make some indications of maybe some lines going up to and around our flowers here. Get a little bit more of the white. And what I'm going to do is kind of do the white, and then I'll probably glaze back over it with some of the green, but if I do it in the white, it'll cover really well. Okay. Let's get some of the green, maybe a little bit of the yellow even. Ooh, that's a lot of yellow. A little bit of the phthalo blue. There we go. See what I'm doing? Just kind of going over the same areas and kind of brushing over these lines. I'm going to break them up. And then like right in here, there's some darker green. So I'm just going to put some darker green in there. These close-up flowers, a little bit darker, more obvious stems, so just kind of changing up the direction, just kind of flicking my brush different directions. The angle brush makes it really easy to do like leaves and things like this, because it's already kind of naturally leaf shaped almost. So by just kind of putting the tip down, I kind of find that it's easier to control it if I have the tip facing me, and then that way I can kind of flick it in different directions and get these little blades of grassy leafy things happening. Okay, how you doing, hon?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
How are you doing?
Great. I'm painting flowers. It's a good day. Silly question. This is actually, we're kind of getting a head start on Veterans Day, right? That's, or I think it's Remembrance Day in different countries.
Yeah.
So November, it's the first weekend in November, so we're kind of doing it now so you can have time to paint it if you have somebody you want to give it to. I always like to paint poppies this time of year. It's a good excuse to paint them. It's one of my favorite flowers, so we try to do a poppy painting at least once a year. Okay, a little bit of blue. Okay, let's do some blue on these now that these are dry. You can get phthalo blue get some dark down the middle there.
Got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips? Where did the question go? Oh, there it is. Or recommendations on how to get like a rapid improvement in your painting?
It sounds funny, but learning to draw will help you with your painting because it actually helps you see things a little bit more accurately. So it helps you focus. That's what when you're learning to draw, you're really training your eye to focus clearly. And so if you, I'm adding a little bit of the darker blue kind of just at the tips of these to add those seed pod things. That will really help you with your painting. I would say do as many, practice. So do as many paintings as you can and get guidance. So helping, doing it with the tutorials will help you a lot because you can get into bad habits if you if you try to do things that you're not quite ready for yet. Like if you, I don't know. Sometimes I get comments from people that are like, this was really hard. And I'm like, yeah, it was a 4-hour painting. Like it's going to be hard. If it takes me 4 hours and I've been painting for about 30 years, then if you're new to painting, it's going to take you like at least twice that amount of time. And it's going to be probably way outside of your comfort level. So pick projects that are doable in one setting. Like pick projects that are 1 hour to 2 hours max on in my tutorials. And then that way you should be able to finish it, in like one setting and just do as many as those as you can. Just sit down and paint every single chance you get. And the more you do that, the more practice you do, the better you will get. You don't worry about what it looks like right off the bat. So like when you're first doing it, I would not get real caught up in like having it look perfect because that will cause you issues. I'm making this one kind of curving over right here, the background. That will slow you down. That'll slow down your progress. If you try to make everything look perfect, when you're first learning, you're really not, you're not trying for perfection. You're just trying to get yourself comfortable with the techniques, with using the brushes, with using the paints, how they work. And then as you get comfortable with them, you'll be able to manipulate them easier. And then you can start to get a little bit more nitpicky. But when you're doing your first like 5 to 10 paintings, they're not going to look great. Like that's just going to be like, it's like if I sat down to try to play, the piano, I'm not going to do it perfectly. That's for darn sure. If I tried to ski or something, I would be falling all over the place. Anything that you're learning for the first time, you're not going to probably do all that well when you're first learning it. And that's normal. And so if you kind of go in with that attitude and know, okay, this probably may not go as well, I'll eventually get there. Like, you'll eventually get to that point where you're actually liking what you're painting. But maybe at first it's not going to be, perfect. And that's okay. So give yourself permission to kind of be a beginner and just, make a few mistakes, move on, and just do, learn, do the next one, learn, move on, and just keep on trying, doing a little bit of green here, just kind of adding some little things. That's my main thing, it's just like, I think that as beginners, we're really hard on ourselves. I see a lot of beginners, especially adults, just get really discouraged because they don't, theirs doesn't look like mine, or, they're just like, I don't have any talent for this. And it has nothing to do with talent. It's just, some people maybe, pick it up a little bit quicker and that's great for them, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you may have to try a little bit harder, or, may take you 20 paintings instead of 5 paintings for somebody else, you know, but everybody's got their own art journey, and we're all kind of, you know, different in our own ways. And so your art's going to be unique to you. And I say embrace that and embrace the imperfect in it, embrace the uniqueness of it, and just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey of it. Don't be so caught up in what it looks like right off the bat. You know, you'll eventually get there, but once you're first learning, it's just not realistic to expect yourself to be great at it right off the bat, you know. All right, moving on here. I think we're done with the background. Really loving this. So we could leave it like this. I mean, it looks great the way it is, but we're going to add our up close flowers. So this is where I'm going to clean off a spot because I need some room to work here. So I'm just going to scrape this color off. So I'm not going to really need any of this blue anymore. I've got it all pretty much down where I needed it. Okay. Oh, that thing's going to be fun to try to clean out. All right, I'm going to throw those out. Take a minute. Go get a drink. Shake out your hands. Stand up, stretch. Look at your painting from distance, see if there's anything else that you want to change before you move on. All right, let's, I'm going to get some of this cadmium red and cadmium light, cadmium red light, wipe most of it off. And I'm going to add some of it to these in here, just to kind of add a little pop of orangey tone to some of them. And you'll notice if we go over these lighter areas, it'll really pop. So if I go over some of those areas that are kind of the lighter tones, it'll be really pretty. Okay. And I'm going to go pretty juicy with my paint because I'm going to have to paint over this green and I want it to cover. So I get some cadmium. I had that orange or cadmium red light, cadmium red medium, and Quinacridone Magenta here with the white. So I'm not worried about the color so much as just having a little bit of white in here. And I'm going to start, oh, that's covering pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to start from the outside in, and I'm, like I said, I'm kind of loading up pretty thick. So this is totally different from what we did before. Before we were kind of going pretty light on the color. This time we're going to have to, we want it to have a nice crisp edge against that green. So I want it to be bright. So I'm going to work my way around here. And this is where you could use some chalk or something to draw in your petals so that you know where your borders are. I'm going to get a little bit of the Quinacridone Magenta now while this is wet and just go back over some of this and darken that up. Now, this is doing pretty well for me, so I don't think I'm going to have to try it in between. I might be able to get away with just doing this. We'll see. I may have to have Mark dry it for me. Okay, so then there is, so it's got kind of a bowl shape, like an oval shape here, right? Our center is very low down here, and then right where that pops out towards us, this petal is almost flat. It looks like this, you know, open, but we're seeing it like this. So we're only seeing this line here. We're not seeing anything else. So this one is pointing straight at us. So we're seeing a little bit of it poking out right here. And then it's going right up against that area there. And kind of cupping around here a little bit. Okay, in fact, the center is way down low here. And I'm not going to worry about the center right now. I'm just going to paint this whole thing red. Okay, Okay, going in, trying to get some darker color on there. That's actually covering really well. I'm really happy with that. If it goes on super dark, just add a little bit more white. The white is what's making it stand out and not look too dark. So you see what what happens if you put it straight over the blue or green or whatever. It's gonna turn kind of purple. Like here's the magenta, straight magenta on there. See how dark that is. Just go ahead and put it there. So, but with that white in there, it shows up. So, okay, I might have made that too low. That's the bottom of my flower right there. I'm just looking at the outside edge of my flower. Going back to that question about, picking projects and things. If you're looking for projects that are easier, my beginner playlist, I have a playlist that's got beginner paintings in them, and they'll, any of my paintings that say easy or beginner in the title will be for beginners. If it does not say that in there, then it's probably not for somebody who's just first learning to paint. So don't leave me mean comments, please. A lot of comments from people are like, that's not a beginner painting. And I'm like, when did I say that it was? Like, where in my title? And there's nowhere in the title anywhere that it said beginner or easy. Not sure where you thought that every single painting that I put on YouTube is supposed to be easy. Not the case. The ones that are easier for beginners are marked so. And if it's not marked so, then it's probably not easy. And especially if you see that it's like 4 hours or something, then it's definitely not easy. Okay, getting some of the lighter color here, trying to mark out this petal that is, again, facing us, that we're seeing kind of just the edge of right here. And some of these outer petals here, I'm just pulling down into that wet paint. That is trying to dry right there. I'm going to see if I can get some thicker paint right there. There we go.
Now, you can't judge a painting on how easy or hard it is by the length of the video, though. I mean, like the Stickman painting that I did was probably your shortest video, and it's the most advanced one on this channel.
Right.
So,
I forgot about that one.
For beginners, don't tackle something like that right off the bat. You'll just get discouraged and never paint again.
Mark has a stickman video that's how to draw a stickman.
So I mean, and of course you
highly recommend it. It's hilarious.
You can slow videos down on YouTube, so you might need to do that also.
Right.
To catch all the essence. I realize I make it look extremely easy, but it came with like over 50 years of practice.
Well, you aren't 50 yet, so.
Okay. Over 40 years of practice.
Right. That was fun. Okay, so just going to go ahead and, I think I'm just making up a outline, just kind of fudging it here for this one. I think this is good. Just thinking about where the petals might be. Okay. Oh, I love it. All right. So while that's drying, let's go ahead and put in our stems for for these ones. Now that we've got them kind of placed, I'm getting a little bit of the yellow with my green, and these stems are really small for such a big flower. They're very very what is the word I'm looking for? Delicate. Very delicate. I bought a bunch of poppy seeds last year, like in the spring, and I never did get to plant them. So I'm hoping to get to plant some this year, this next spring. We'll see. I've never had success with poppies here. We live in the south and it's not a great climate for them, but I have seen neighbors grow them, so I'm hopeful. We'll see. Mark, maybe special planting beds. He gave me a whole one to use, and then I used for my irises.
Okay, so I made this commitment to myself when I started this gardening adventure again, that it was not going to be taken over by flowers.
What? Who told you? You didn't tell me this.
And I'm not even done with the first season, and that's already gone out the window.
Yeah, no.
So
We got 3-4 planters with flowers in them now.
I've had the most expensive cucumbers and salad I've ever had in my life this year.
Not a joke. Grabbing some green, just making some of the lighter greens, and oh, that's a pretty color. Yeah, I like that. So just kind of going through here, and blending these out, making sure I've got kind of some fuzzy. If you want to get real fancy with this, there actually is kind of a fuzzy white all the way around here, so you could kind of go through here and tap like a little bit of white on either side of the stems. I probably should have done that first and then did them, but I'll just kind of add a little bit of it. And you can always use your finger too. That's something people forget. Like if you get going and you're kind of like, oh, that's a little bit too much, just grab your, use your finger and blend it out a little bit. So, I love it. Okay, this is still not dry. It's going on so thick. So I may have to have you dry this, honey, for me. Let's go ahead and try to get some of the dark in here. I'm going to get some black and purple. And I'm just going to mark out where the darkest part of this is. It's just right here down low. This one is right up in here. And again, kind of making sure that I'm kind of fuzzing out these edges up where they blend out, because we're going to be adding other colors on them. So I'm just adding kind of the dark areas there. So let's say this is a petal that's kind of coming up a little bit. So we're seeing just a little bit of it peeking through right here maybe. Oops, that one is much more wet than the rest of these. Okay, getting some of that. Okay. I'm going to let you take that, honey, and dry it, because I can't do anything else with it really till it's dry. Thank you. I'll show you what we're working on in our $10 group. Doesn't look like much right now. The Facebook group, the Patreon $10 group. Let me go grab you. There we go. We're going to be making a mousse. So we drew that out. We'll be starting on the mousse, transferring it onto the canvas. One thing I would say, if you are, drawing, you like to draw, and you want to transfer your drawings onto canvas, or you want to draw and your own things and not use a traceable, I would suggest doing it on paper. Do your drawings on paper. Don't draw straight onto the canvas, because it can be hard to edit on the canvas. So, and especially like I see a lot of people like that draw this really elaborate like people or something like that, and then they paint in the people and then they haven't done the background, and so they kind of jump the gun. They do the subject first instead of the background first, and that makes it so much harder to do your background if you've if you've got this really detailed thing in here. So I would say do your background, you paint it in, whatever. You can draw your background if it's simple with chalk, but then your actual subject, draw it on paper, transfer it onto your canvas with tracing paper, trace your design. That way you can edit as much as you want on your paper, and you don't have to worry about how it's going to look, or worry about messing up your canvas. And then that way we can do our layers the way we did here, where we did our whole background, not worrying about it at all where our moose is going to go. And then, we kind of figured out sort of generally where he went. I kind of sketched out sort of this main area, then like knowing that this is where it is, so I knew where to put my tree lines and things like that. But we just painted all of it in as if that moose is not going to be there. And then we're going to put our details in to the background. And then we're going to trace on the moose. We've already got it drawn. So it's just going to be real easy to trace that onto tracing paper, put it onto the canvas with some graphite paper. Somebody was asking me about, they said, I have a black background. What do I use? There are the Floral paper that I use right here. Floral transfer paper comes in white, black, blue, red, and yellow. So it goes on any color. And the nice thing about this one is that it's wax free. So it's water soluble. So if you make a mistake or you get it and sometimes it can be messy, it'll wipe right off with some water. So, all right. Sounds like Mark is just about done. That's the Strathmore Visual Journals, by the way. I use the mixed media paper. I really like them a lot. All of that stuff that I'm using is down in the description. I've got links to Blick and Amazon. And today's Amazon day. Maybe there's some stuff on sale. I don't even know. I didn't check to see if any of the art stuff's on sale. Generally, the art stuff is not as cheap on Amazon as it is. Some of the stuff is like the Floral paper and different ones are. Brushes tend to be more expensive there, so I would get your brushes from the brush guys. I have the link down in the description for them. They already have a discount, and then you get an extra 5% off if you use the code Angela Fine Art when you check out too, so you get even more discount. But a lot of times their brushes are discounted like 50% already, 30 to 50%. And then you can get another 5% off, which just kind of helps with tax, I guess, But, all right. So, wow, we are making good progress here. Almost done. I'm going to get some of the red. Now that I've got this dry and everything, I'm really even with the white in there, it covered pretty well. It's pretty vibrant, so I'm happy with the color. I'm going to go ahead and get some of that brighter cadmium red, though, straight up and put some of that in. Look at how pretty that is over the top of that white or lighter red color. There, it's really going to make it much more vibrant. Trying to stick with just the general kind of same areas there. Then there is a line here. I'm going to go ahead and get some of my Quinacridone Magenta, a little bit of my purple. So I want kind of a darker red. There's a little bit of a line here. I'm noticing some shadow. And then a little bit of the shadow coming up there. A little bit of it there, a little bit of it here, coming out of the middle. So let's define this. This is a petal here. See how I did like a V shape there? So it gave me a spot to do a petal. So here's another petal here, maybe, coming up. And then this petal coming up this way. So let's darken up this one here. This will be our petal kind of coming up. And we'll darken up the bottom of it so the light's catching at the top here. And we get some white. I'm going to pick up the cadmium red a little bit too, and I'm going to pull down from the top down into Gonna blend those two together a little bit. Right there. Do the same thing right here. See that? Just adding a little highlights. Just setting my brush down and kind of dragging it towards the middle a little bit, letting it kind of catch and lift. Okay, let's do some highlights all across the front of this petal here. I'm seeing some Cadmium Red Light. So let's add that to white right here. I'm going to tap it. Get some of that highlighted color off. See how that brought that forward? Isn't that cool how that works? A little bit of highlighted area right there. I'm going to go brighter than I think it needs to be. And when it dries, I'm going to use the edge of my brush here, and I'm just pulling down at an angle a little bit to create these lines that are pulling down into my flower. And then I'll get some of the darker red and just kind of go back over that, blend it in a little bit. Okay, pretty happy with that. Go really dark right there.
People are talking about the cornucopia video you did a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the comments was the drawing wasn't too bad, but watch out for the blending.
Oh, really?
She was like, boom, apple. And I was like, what?
Oh, how did that happen? That's funny.
Don't turn away.
Yeah.
You'll miss it.
Fruit are fun to paint, though. They do come together pretty quickly. That painting, I don't know. I definitely did it like a looser style in some of those older Patreon videos because they're way shorter than the newer ones. Way shorter, like 3 hours. And like I can't do a 2-hour video to save my life anymore. This one would have been an hour a couple of years ago, and now it's like going on 2. So I don't know. I don't know why, but anymore I can't do the shorter videos. It just doesn't work for me. Okay, so love it. All right, I'm going to get the little angle, the 1/4 inch angle. Make sure that these brushes have not dried out, so I'm just dip them back in the water because they're not clean yet, and I need to clean them out really well after with soap. So don't let your paints dry out in your brushes. Okay, I'm going to get some Cadmium Red and add it to my purple here. See how that made a kind of a duller purple? If I added the magenta, it'd make it brighter because they're close together. But if I go one step over, it's just going to make a little bit of duller color. In fact, I want a little bit of blue in here too. So I'm going to do some blue over here. And then this middle part is actually kind of almost a yellow. So let's go ahead and grab some yellow. I'm going to use what's left in my brush here. It's going to create kind of a weird olive green yellow because I have that purple in there, purple yellow opposite on the color wheels. So if I want it a little bit more bright yellow, I'm going to add more, clean my brush out a little bit, add some more white. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to use that up in here, this middle part. It's way too bright, but I'm going to add some purple at the top. Get some of this green to add towards the bottom there. Wow, what is that? Was that my brush? My phone? Come on. I swear I have no thumbprint. Never works. Wasn't mine. I think it's yours.
Mine. Or maybe it was mine. It's on mute too.
No. Okay, so doing a dark blue purple here, a little bit of black to help darken it up a little bit more. I'm gonna darken up this bottom of this, just going over that area there just a little bit. See how that darkened that up? That makes it look like it's set down in. Before that it was looking like it was kind of pasted on top. And getting some of this brighter purple. And do these lines here. You can use a smaller brush if you want to. I'm not worried about it being perfect. Just gonna do some little lines in there, and then our little dots, and we'll be done. So get a little bit of blue, a little bit of white here. And then I'm gonna start with the purple though, because it's kind of dark, so I'm gonna dab with a, ooh, I've got both. That actually works really good. I've got both on there. Get a little bit of black, a little bit of purple, and then get a little bit of that lighter color on top. Oh, that's good. Okay, so we can just kind of use that, double loading it. It'll save us a little bit of time. Tapping straight down with the tip of my brush to create these little sparkly things. I don't know what they are. Little plant parts. The naughty bits. That's what that guy called, right? That we were watching a thing about, was showing hummingbirds. He's calling it the get into the plant's naughty bits. It was hilarious. We laughed so hard. Okay, so these are the naughty bits there. Sorry, kids. I couldn't resist. I did not come up with that on my own. All right. A little blue and a little bit of ultramarine blue. I'm going to see a little bit of yellow even. Okay, and then I'm just going to dab. They're not super bright, but there's some much brighter little bits here. And just using the very tip of my brush, I'm able to kind of create these little dots, just barely touching them down. Okay, I think we're done. We could probably do another layer or two on the poppies, but I don't want to have Mark try it again, so nobody got time for that. Mark wants to get dinner. Sound like a Sling Blade dude. French fries.
French fried potatoes.
Man, it's been so long since I watched that movie. Okay, signing it with my pen. This is the Pigma Sakura FB. I'm going to get my little, I need a small brush here. I'm going to get this. I was going to use the this one for the stems, but I didn't end up using it, so I'm going to just use this brush here. This is my number 1 round. I did not have it on my list. Just grabbed it. Use some green here, a little bit of white. I'm just going to kind of blend this out. Were you ready?
Am I ready?
Mm-hmm.
I am. Are you ready?
Yeah. I thought you were doing
Well, let's do it.
super chat. Okay.
And
A little bit of cowbell.
action.
Go. Go cowbell.
Yay for cowbell. We had a super chatter tonight. Cindy, she donated and she said, "Love your videos."
Aw.
Thank you, Cindy,
Thank you,
so
Cindy.
much.
That makes my day. I like to hear that. All right. I am seeing one thing here.
I really need to dim the lights in here so we get the full effect of the disco lights bouncing off of everything. I think it's a better effect.
It is pretty cool. Just using a little magenta here, just kind of defining some of these petals a little bit better. And this is where, like, now that this is dry, I could go through here with a little bit of the Cadmium Red Light. Maybe just I got a little bit of the magenta on here, but I want to tone it just a little bit and just use these with the glaze. It'll tint this white part just a little bit more red, so it looks a little bit more natural. It's a really good way of getting like bright reds, because bright reds tend to either go pink or you know, kind of white. You kind of can't get them bright enough without them kind of turning pink or something. So you can add some yellow to them or an orangey color to keep them from turning too pink if you don't want that. In this case, it doesn't really bother me because these are kind of pink toned in some places anyways, but sometimes you don't want pink, you know, in your reds. And so you can use the glaze to go back over and take the pink out. Right, so, all right, I'm going to leave that. I could probably keep messing with it, but I really like it. I think it turned out good.
No, probably about it. You could.
Looks like I've got no doubts that you could.
Oh, yeah. That's a sure bet. And there she goes.
Just a little bit of yellow here, just define those again.
So again, to remind everybody, the link's down below the video for supplies.
Yes.
And also Patreon for the bonus videos and traceables.
Traceables
and all that
are
stuff.
$2. I didn't mention that. I mentioned the $5 level for the bonus videos. So the cornucopia that we were talking about is one of the bonus videos from a couple years ago. It's one of our very first bonus videos, actually. So that was that's included with the $5 level. So you get the cat from this month, and then you get any of the other ones that you want to watch too.
You get over 3 years worth of videos.
Right. And we did one a month, so add that up, whatever that is.
Like 36
I don't know.
plus.
Yeah, some of them, they're not that many because we did, there's probably about 30, I would say, because
Like I said, about 30-ish.
Okay, yeah, 30-ish. That's probably better. I meant, did you hear?
I don't know what you heard.
All right, thanks guys so much. We got to go get Mark some food, and me too.
We'll see you Saturday, right?
Yeah, we'll be back Saturday. We're painting some pumpkins again. Yay. Pumpkin patch this time, so I think it'll be fun. Hope you join us for that. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.